Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. Today we have a special guest. May is back.
Hi guys.
A couple of videos ago, I talked a little bit about the teaching profession, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to invite May back and ask her to share some of her teaching tactics, because I think she's a brilliant teacher. To be honest, we could have done this as a podcast, because I know it's going to be a long video, but I like the good teacher that she is. She has brought the excellent, outstanding teacher, in the words of Ofsted, that she is. She's brought some resources. This will be really useful, not just for parents or for caregivers or even for teachers, but just for all of us as individuals, because I think that when you understand other people better, you get to understand yourself a bit better. Take it away, May.
I've been teaching for over 10 years. I've got experience in teaching EBAC as well as American and obviously British curriculum. I'd like to give history because one of the first lessons that I teach when I'm a history teacher, because I wear many different hats, but when I'm a history teacher, I always remind the students that history is a subject that tells you about his story, because women unfortunately weren't given as much importance throughout history, and therefore evidence found from the women's perspective is limited. So her story becomes very much something that is lost and is only found out after the Industrial Revolution. So I think that's an important thing that I like to bring about in my learning.
Can I also say, I love that you make a song and dance about it. International Women's Day, you did something for that. At your previous schools, you've done celebrating Black History Month. And this was sometimes when she was met with a bit of resistance from the faculty. Yeah, from the faculty, she still went ahead and did it. And I love that that is something that's so admirable about teachers who understand that in order for children to be able to relate and have high aspirations, they have to be celebrated. And a lot of the schools that you've taught at, you've taught a lot of black and brown kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important that the curriculum allows their voice to be heard, but not just from the lens of being a victim, but also looking at the game changers and the trailblazers that worked within that system of oppression and still managed to carve out something of significance and sort of pass the baton on to the next person and to the next person. And here we are, people of colour, and we've got better representation. Okay, not equal representation, there's still some work to be done there.
You're going to share something with us today.
So in my 10 years of teaching, for the past 5 years, I've been grappling with a lot of senior leaders telling me that, I'd be great for the senior leadership team, and I just didn't quite understand and wasn't really buying into it. I mean, you're my greatest cheerleader.
Please, can I stop you for 1 second? You guys, I know this gorgeous specimen just said 10 years and you're like, how? She looks like she's 16. But yes, she's been doing this for 10 years here and abroad, and I've been telling her for years now, because I can see her potential, that she needs to be, you've done the degree, you've done a master's, you've done your NPQML or whatever.
No, I'm doing the NPQML right now.
Yeah, all this stuff. And I'm like, girlfriend, you need to progress higher. Department of Education, give her a call.
And I'd love to work on a national scale, but I wasn't fully embracing the leadership side to it, just because it's been really hard. I mean, I've been in teaching for 10 years. I know it doesn't show that I've been stressed out, but it is something really hard. And you wind up thinking, is it for me really? I don't know. And self-doubt sort of creeps in. I went to this really empowering networking meeting, which was probably a year and a half ago. It was Women's Ed, and it was something that I thought, a group of female teachers, how much are they really going to be builders? Because my experience of female teachers in leadership especially has not been particularly something that I felt encouraged by or empowered by. So when I went to this
What do you mean by that, girlfriend? You can't just say that and just walk off.
There's a lot of jealousy, and I mean, the thing is, you can't, when it's happening, you're not quite sure, because obviously they're in the senior position and you just think, they can't be jealous of me. I'm just, a teacher. I mean, I was getting it when I was a supply teacher in one of the schools as well, just a lot of animosity for no reason. And I was...
No, there was a reason. It's because you have an excellent rapport with the kids. You have a great way of getting the best out of them and to raise their academic results, and all the kids always say you're their favorite. I'm not tooting a horn for no reason. I'm saying that when you do that, sometimes when you are brave enough to shine, people will try and dull that shine.
Yeah.
And I think that's present in every industry, and I actually don't think that is necessarily limited to women. I know that's been your experience, that's just been a part of your path and a part of your story, that's what you've experienced, perhaps
especially because I've worked in segregated schools as well, so it would be the female faculty that I would be dealing with.
But at the end of the day, you were left with that kind of sour taste in your mouth.
essentially. So yeah, and you know what, funnily enough, it was the students who started saying, oh miss, you need to be the assistant head, you need to be the principal, and I just used to sort of laugh it off, just thinking like, who, me? Like, I can't do that kind of stuff. So I went to this women's ed thing, and it was so therapeutic because I came across so many women of colour. They were talking about how basically when women get into leadership position, it's important to leave the ladder down so that other women can follow you. And not just that, hold the door open for them. You know, that's the only way that patriarchy in any industry can be brought down, right? Is you don't just limit the seats at the table just two for women, you make it equal, and therefore it's representative of society. So I went to this thing, and oh my gosh, the stuff that I was hearing about, you know, this levels of abuse of power that took place, and how other women had essentially their shine taken away from them just by some comments, and the principals limiting their potential as well. So I felt all of a sudden that my story is not exclusive. It's not me. It's an inclusive story. It's a narrative of what women can experience in the workplace. And then when you think about it and you take a step back, well, we haven't actually been on equal terms. I mean, 1975, Sex Discrimination Act came out in this country, but really, are we really equal all over the world, or are we still chained to certain paradigms of society? So yeah, I went to this and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. I want to go into, because I'd left that job recently, and then I went into the new job saying, you know what, I'm going to bring something new. I'm going to demonstrate the extent of my leadership. And it started off with me thinking, okay, what can I offer? And the growth mindset, which was developed by Carol Dweck, was what I put my hand up to develop as a whole school policy. And it's been amazing, and that's what I want to share with you and give you some tips about how I make sure that my teaching is authentic despite whatever climate the school is in. Because I've worked in outstanding schools as well as special measures school. So tip number one, know your context. Obviously in an international school environment, context will be very different to working in a inner city school, and most of my experience has come from inner city. However, like I said, I worked in Saudi Arabia for 3 years, and that context was different. I'll talk about that more in a minute. The first thing that it says...
Oh, shall I read it out for you?
Yeah, please.
What's the school demographic?
So the demographic of the students as well as staff as well. I mean, what kind of environment are you raising these young people in? Because ultimately those young people, especially the year 11s, will reflect the type of learning that they've had from the adults that have been there in the school long term. And in that way, you can begin to deduce what's the work here. I mean, the school that I'm currently in, there's a lot of apathy. And how can you deal with apathy? What's the school behaviour policy? How can you use that to boost and support and challenge the apathy in young people? Why are they not believing in themselves, etc. The schools that I've worked in previously, they have been segregated schools, so it was females only. So this school that I'm in, it's a lot of boys, and dealing with boys again was very interesting, and you know, separate challenges to teaching just girls. If your school is from a more poverty or working class background, there can be other hurdles that students are coming to school with, which is like, I don't see the point of education, I already know what I'm going to do, I'm going to do what my dad does kind of a thing, and not really fully exploring all the opportunities that the 21st century world has to offer you.
It's really sad. One time I remember one student said to me, Miss, what's the point? I'm going to be on the dole anyway.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of that, and it's like, wow, where did you get this from? That kind of thing. And then when you hear of kids who are basically caretakers for their siblings,
yeah,
and it's not because the parents are like intentionally bad parents or anything. The parents themselves are going through mental health challenges and are not able to take care of their children properly, and social services haven't yet been involved. So it's like this grey area.
And they don't necessarily have the tools either to parent. It's something that requires constant input. And you know, if you're working full time, who has that time as well?
The next thing, it says, what are the potential ACEs?
So ACEs is something that we looked at a couple of years ago.
I made a video about it, guys, when I talked about my book reviews, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, and the other one, what was part 2 called? I can't remember, my mind's drawing a blank. But ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, which basically means just that. It's the childhood experiences that a kid might be going through which are adverse, which are challenging. And so it's a whole scale of issues, and it's really easy. It's like a tick list of, have you yourself experienced this thing and you get an ACE score, or you can score children at the school. It's been researched loads, so you get a score, and then that gives you the likelihood of mortality, how long you're going to live, chronic illness, like all of this stuff is predictable to an extent when you look at ACEs.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to share a diagram with you in a minute. So knowing about the ACEs, and although schools have now started introducing it as part of CPD, I'm not completely convinced that everybody in the profession is taking this into account to the extent that it needs to be, because the whole idea is education is now trying to be more scientific in its methods of teaching. The third tip was?
What are the potential barriers for students to be on-side?
So on-side is how much are they invested in their own education. When you're dealing with students who don't see the point of education, I've had this conversation so many times. When young people argue with me about what is the point of education for them, I remind them that education is the key to unlocking so much potential within themselves, because they don't know about how the world came to be where it is right now. They're sort of inheriting something that they don't understand. They don't know the language, they don't know the idioms. So by actually learning about it through various angles of science, maths, English, history, they're figuring out where is their talent, where is their interest. They're being exposed to so much curriculums that enables them to be lifelong learners, learners that want to contribute to society, learners that want to improve themselves, their own life chances. I always tell them about my experience, and when they're telling me about, oh miss, I'm going to wind up on the dole, I tell them I was on the dole for a couple of months at a time, but there's nothing wrong with that. Short term it can be fine, it can be just a means to an end, but long term I realized that living off £75 per 2 weeks was not the way that I wanted my life to go ahead. I visualized a better life for myself, and education has been the key to that.
Is that what you mean by on-side?
Yeah, so when they believe,
they're on your side.
Yeah, they're on your side. On the teacher's side, they want you to deliver the lesson. They're curious about what you have to say, rather than mess about and waste an hour or 45 minutes of the lesson. They'd rather be there learning. And I've told them, somebody like, miss, we have to write so much in your lessons. And I'm like, yes, you have to, because I'm training you from now to be able to write a 2-hour exam. And the more we practice something, the more your muscle develops in it. And then it becomes easier for you. And I said, unless you change the education system in this country and written exams are off the table, then you need to become a politician and become the Prime Minister and elect people and get nominated. And even that requires education. The next tip I put down was,
how can you make it easier to help students buy into their own potential?
So it's not enough to have school behaviour policy, they'll have their values and all of that, but how are you making it accessible for the student in your classroom? How are you bringing that in so that they see you modelling how education has served you, has improved your life chances? And the next tip is, so here is a diagram that shows basically the ACEs and how if they go unaddressed, they can wind up spiraling and lead to an early death. Because if you don't look at your own ACEs, you can wind up having unconscious behaviours that will lead you to choose unhealthy habits for yourself and lead you to addictions, and therefore lead to potentially an early death. This is a diagram of all the different types. You said you're going to put this up.
So you're saying, yeah, I'll put this up. So you're saying that in order for schools to offer a higher quality education, it's important for them to address ACEs in all of their individual students.
Yeah, and it can be seamlessly done through the curriculum. It doesn't need to be a grand thing. It can just be something as simple as showing students about growth mindset, and which I'm going to be showing you how to do in a moment's time.
It's interesting because I think that once schools, in my opinion, my humble non-teacher opinion, once schools decide to adopt any kind of ACEs methodology in their school ethos or in how strategies are being formulated, that there is mental health support for the teachers as well. Like, I think all schools need a therapist, like a teacher's therapist, where teachers can go and hash out what's happening with their students and get some assistance in how they themselves can manage a class of students. We're not talking about subject knowledge, we're not talking about starters and plenaries. I don't know if you still do that, I did that back in my day. And whatever you do within the classroom insofar as passing down the education and the academic side of stuff, but actually more the personal side of how teachers are handling all of 30 different students, which is already going against how nature has designed us and how human relationships should be. It shouldn't be like 30 kids to one adult. That's not traditionally what it was and what is best for young minds or for our minds. So and I think that would make a big difference. Like, we talked about teachers who yell and scream at kids, and it's such a pet peeve of mine. Not to say that necessarily the teachers should be blamed for that, because they've got their own lives and their own stuff that they're dealing with in life. But getting that support for them would help them to be able to diffuse a situation, would lower stress levels for themselves and for their students. Because a student who's got parents at home who are yelling and shouting, or parents who are abusing them, screaming in their face, when they see that replicated by a teacher, immediate trigger, their stress response is going to be activated.
Especially since the teacher is meant to be an educated professional who's modelling what education can actually help you to achieve. If that's your fixed strategy to get a class to behave, I don't know, maybe you need to reevaluate what the best strategies are to get young people on side.
Because I remember when I was a teacher, hearing other teachers shout in the class, it makes it increases your heart rate, right? You get, do you think that child, firstly, being triggered like that is going to learn? No. Who is it actually helping? Literally nobody. It's not even helping you, because they're not going to respond to you. In fact, they'll switch off. They'll become numb to it sooner or later. Exactly. So that's just one thing. And therefore, getting some kind of, getting psychotherapy involved in the mix somewhere for teachers so that they can be better supporters of students and students' mental health, I think would be a great idea. I mean, I know all this requires money and increased budgeting and stuff. DFE, is that what Department of Education is?
Yeah, DFE.
No, whatever. DFE. I think it's something to consider.
Next slide. So it's very important that you are the positive frame for education, that you're framing things for young people in a way that they see their potential, they see a route into a life that's better for them. And that's why the frame is there. I included the tape as well, back from the 90s, right? To remind everyone that we all deserve a positive voice inside our head. There must be lots of positive voices in the child's mind to counteract any sort of negative impact of ACEs and limited views that this child is coming to you with. And hopefully in the long run, they will believe in their full potential. Their cup will be filled in so many other ways. So how can you do this? Well, you are the mirror for education. You're the champion for them in terms of trying to get them on side to want to believe in their potential.
So many of them are riddled with self-doubt, and that holds them back. And I always say the key to success is 90% confidence. Yeah. If you have the confidence, you are 90% there. That rest of the 10% is whatever the content and the actual knowledge and stuff. You need to have the confidence to do that. And I think that's where seeing a teacher or having that teacher in your life who believes in you can help to bolster that.
And also having honest conversations about challenges that you've experienced, mistakes you've made. I mean, I always tell them that it took me 10 years to pass my driving because I tried to be cheap and use my dad. So even though I saved money, I wasted time because then I kept going abroad and then coming back and starting up and stuff. And so the moment I got a professional, I passed within 6 months on my first go.
By the way, guys, this isn't something that runs in the family. You guys know I just passed my driving this year. But our other two sisters passed very early. It's just us.
Yeah, exactly. It was bottom of the food chain kind of a thing in terms of priorities.
We were like, we'll get a lift. I like being driven around.
I live in Saudi. I'm not allowed to drive then anyway.
Now they can. Yeah. But when you were teaching, you couldn't.
Ooh, what's the
You are the ambassador for education, and number 2, break it down for them. Break it down now. Oh, show them that learning is a privilege with unlimited rewards for them now and in the future.
So I always like to say to them, when I bump into you 10 years from now, what am I going to see you as? Life is hard and complicated, and education really provides that extra measure of support and protection against the challenges, and helps you to be more adaptable and flexible in the face of these challenges.
Let learning be a dialogue where they can be creative with their learning. Yep. Give them lots of chances to excel.
Yeah, so I always tell them when they do assessments that I'm never going to tell them off what they get on an assessment. They've got plenty of chances in their learning to improve. Even if they make a mistake, it's okay, because they'd rather make their mistake now and learn from the experience and bounce back and do better on the next time they get their chance to improve in the subject.
Frame their failures as learning experiences.
So resilience is key there. So this is how I delivered one of the sessions on growth mindset. Make the learning very much personal to them by using pronouns like yourself, right? Think about the last difficult situation you found yourself in, and automatically their mind will respond to that instruction and start thinking about a challenge that they had. And that way they're already buying into wanting to learn, where is this learning going to go? Why are we talking about challenges? I then link it to the big picture. What's the overall aim here? What's in it for them? How does it link to their life? And this is the outcome. There's Carol Dweck there talking about the growth mindset. Incredible research that she's done.
What is the growth mindset, Danny?
So the idea is that with enough effort and enough time, anyone can experience personal growth. And that's the whole point of education, isn't it? That you have to be in compulsory education up to the age of 16 because you've been given so much time to try and improve in these certain subjects, to decide for yourself a more specialised pathway for you in terms of career and what you actually want to enjoy and where do you get pleasure from, kind of thing. You know, which subjects are hobbies and which subjects are actually something lucrative that you would like to get further training in.
So it's just like the growth mindset is the foundation upon which they will stack on their subject knowledge, all the memorization, you know, times tables you just go memorize, right? The rest is subject knowledge, application, comprehension, all of that stuff. The foundation is your mindset. What kind of mindset do you have? If you have a growth mindset, everything that comes out of that will be positive.
Yeah, and it's like a core human value for human development. If you've got enough people in the world that have a growth mindset, we can actually push society forward as opposed to keep it stuck in a fixed mindset where we think that, you know, it's the end of the world kind of a thing.
So what does fixed mindset mean? Like, what are the thoughts that a person with a fixed mindset
I'm not good at this subject, I'll never learn, that person's so much better than me. They were just born that way.
I just remembered a real life example of the fixed mindset. So me, maths was always a thing. Maths and me were like, you know, arch nemesis maths. And I always used to say, and everybody in my family knows, I always used to say, oh, I'm just not good at maths. I just don't know maths. I'm just not good with abstract concepts. I'm a storyteller. I need that. I need, you know, the exploration of English and art and music. I love music and science as well, that degree of, you know, investigative work. And maths, I was always like, nope, can't do it. And so, like, maths was my 1B amongst all those A's, okay, at GCSE level. It was like, I swear, I should have, I mean, look, I'm not being self-deprecating. I think I should have got a C or a D, but I think that range of B, those marks must have been massive that year, because I was like, I don't know how I got a B. But even though I got that B, which is pretty promising, I was still like, oh, I can't do it. So when I was at uni, I was like, okay, let's be clever, Amena. We're going to choose human biology. Not chemistry, physics, human. Like, how much maths is going to be in human biology? Oh no, there was like a couple of modules, and there's one important module which I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It's maths. And my aim was 2-1. Okay, so I was like, how am I going to get my 2-1 if I fail this module in maths? And that's when I approached you, because I was like, I think I'd hit rock bottom, and I was like, look, I just need to somehow just scrape past maths, and you helped me.
Yeah, I was doing my A-levels at the time. I mean, I got a B at GCSE, and I thought that was...
I can't, no, I refuse to accept we got at the same grade.
And
I must have been on the border.
I chose it at A-levels purely because of my teacher. She was just so amazing, you know, really strict.
Oh, everyone loved her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Miss Green, she was just so awesome. And I remember after the first year of doing my A-levels, she was like, Maimuna, whether you think you're doing it for A2 or not, doesn't matter, I'm putting your name down, you're doing it. So that was one subject that I had to do. But yeah, she was incredible, and she really got me over my fear of numbers. And you've called maths abstract. See, I think it's very logical and rational, and that part of my brain liked the order and the knowing of right and wrong, and that you couldn't justify another answer.
Well, that's how you taught it to me. Like at uni, she gave me actual methodology, and you were like, look, it's easy, you just follow this formula, like it's A, B, C. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And some, you know, I got a first on that module. Like it wasn't there, because as part of my dissertation, obviously I dealt with numbers, we looked at stats and all that kind of thing. This was under exam conditions, which is why I was freaking out. And actually ended up I got a first overall on my course, but specifically in that module, amazingly, I always say it's a miracle, because I was like, how did my marks come together for a first? Yeah, in that maths, and that was purely because you instilled in me the idea of a growth, even though we didn't know it at the time, it was a growth mindset. You were saying, yes, you can do it. Look, there are easy ways to do it. And you kind of opened that door. Yeah. Whereas I was like, oh, I'm not. And you would give me so much encouragement. You'd be like, oh, you're really good at this. See, you've done it. And like, here's the proof. You can do it. And so I was like, oh, okay, so maybe my brain can handle maths. Maybe it can handle these abstract concepts. Maybe I'm not as bad as I thought. Maybe all I have to do. And it was that confidence that you get, right?
I mean, I guess I was paying you back for you helping me out in my GCSEs with my science, you know, I mean, I was...
Oh, I thought you were going to say English.
No.
Remember we did Frankenstein?
Yeah, Frankenstein. English was separate, right? But for English, I wound up getting a really good teacher. So, I mean, you and Zainab really helped me. And the science stuff was from year 10 onwards, you know, I was given a teacher that just constantly picked on me. I mean, I wasn't the greatest listener, but now that I look back, she was probably a newly qualified teacher, and you know what NQTs are like. So, yeah, she called me... It's
a joke, guys. All the NQTs are going to be like... Argh!
She outright called me vain, and you know, we know that labelling students is the worst,
vain?
The worst thing you can do to a student.
But like, literally, how are you vain?
But
we spend zero time on self-grooming.
But that's just what made me just switch off. I became fixed in science, thinking, you know what, forget it. Like I'm just gonna get the D's and just accept it, kind of a thing. But then you got me really on side, and you know, explained abstract concepts of, you know, volcanoes.
Oh yeah.
Not in place with hands and
I'm a kinesthetic teacher, so there was a lot of like dramatic acting and performances and song and dance and rap, and like I'm that kind of teacher. Okay.
And it helped.
I'm glad I'm not your teacher.
2 A's, mate.
It did. It worked out pretty well.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, another person can actually genuinely open up that part of your mind to make it more flexible and malleable and less fixed. So I always like to remind young people about what does mindset mean. And when I was doing the research for it, it was incredible because I learned stuff myself, right? So what is a mindset, Amna?
It is the established set of attitudes held by someone.
Okay, so your attitude, and obviously as a young person, your attitudes are coming predominantly from your home environment and also your primary school as well, your experiences there that would have formed some sort of core attitude in you towards learning. And then when you look at attitude in more detail, you realize that actually, right, attitude is the way you think and feel. So if you've been made to feel horrible in a particular subject, and let's face it, we want to say it's not about the teacher, but actually the teacher is framing that subject for them, then it can be highly demoralizing, and then that student becomes fixed in thinking, oh, I don't enjoy that. I mean, one thing that I always tell young people about my subject, about history, and why I find it fascinating is it helps me to watch movies with so much better understanding than anyone, because I can frame it in, oh, it was in this time period, so this was taking place and that was taking place, and I can actually fully appreciate the context of the world that the director or the scriptwriter has created, because I understand the context. Yeah.
You find parallels and stuff. Like when we were watching Game of Thrones, you found like certain similarities between what was happening in that and certain world events, and like you tell us. Or like from Game of Thrones to like Ertugrul, like literally.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything.
It's how a young person thinks and feels. And the whole point of education is to allow young people to have a positive attitude by the time they're 16, in terms of a positive attitude towards life. Not necessarily, okay, they might take an apprenticeship route, they might take a higher education route. Whatever route they're taking, they're leaving education with a positive residue of wanting to know things in further detail, rather than just take things at face value and jump to conclusions, which is what a fixed mindset does. And also another question that I would pose to them is, what are your thoughts and feelings about learning? Because then it starts getting them thinking about, you know, what kind of attitude are they approaching the lesson with? How do they approach school? You know, when you ask them, why do you come to school? Because there's been schools in which I've worked in where genuinely the students come in for the fact that they get a hot meal. Therefore, their attitude towards learning is something completely different to a student who's genuinely coming to improve their life chances. We've got students that come in because there's no one at home, so it's sort of babysitting. So it's all about how can you then get all these diverse groups of young people to have a positive attitude towards learning.
I like here that these statements are all I statements, because sometimes kids just want to know that they've been heard. They just feel like their thoughts and feelings have been heard, so they get to share that. I think that's really cool.
Do you want to read the statement so that they can...
I love to learn. I think learning is okay. I'd rather be at home. I don't like learning. I come to school for other things like break, friends and lunch. I hate learning. I don't want to be here.
Right, and there, the practitioner in the environment can actually start modelling and thinking about, okay, how can I approach this student, that student?
So different students and different needs.
Exactly.
I remember one of the boys you were teaching was very resistant to you, and something that you deduced simply by learning more about him and his background is that he just had an inherent negativity towards females, something to do with his mum, or like his dad had walked out and his mum didn't give him enough attention or something. There was something in his home life.
Yeah.
And so when he wasn't responding to you, and didn't he swear at you or something?
Yeah.
You were able to basically respond to it with empathy.
Yeah.
And understanding. And I'm not saying that it's okay, and I'm not saying we should let kids get away with everything. There should
And
be
he didn't get away with it either.
No, you did, right? Because there's a behaviour policy. You discipline them. However, I think that when they know that you understand them, and there's this implicit relationship where they kind of feel seen and heard and feel safe around you. I think that transforms lives, really, doesn't it? But you took the time to learn that about that student instead of just, yelling like a banshee in his face.
Yeah.
Basically doing to him what his experience of adults has been his whole life. And I think that's really cool that you were able to understand rather than to take it personally and be like, how dare you.
It's the teacher's ego rather than actually...
I tell you what, you guys, kids will respect you if you respect them.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Even when I was wearing hijab and I was teaching in very tough schools, all right? Special measures schools. There's one in particular here in Leicester that I was teaching in. I was treated no differently to when I wasn't wearing it when I first came into teaching, when I was a trainee.
Yeah.
Taught the kids with respect. And these are kids who they've probably never met, let alone a hijabi, haven't really met a Muslim. There weren't very many Muslims in the school. And so they, like some of the kids, even like the naughtiest ones who were like self-labeled naughty, they'd be cheeky with you, they'd ask you questions. And if you answer with respect and honesty and say, you know what, I feel that you're disrespecting me, or, you just like open with your feelings and you open that dialogue with them, it just, oh my God, they just switched. Kids are so incredible at doing that. They are just so much more open-minded and their hearts are so open to love, so much more than oftentimes adults can be. And they're way less judgmental. I mean, some of these kids, some of the schools that I taught in, especially when I was in London, and I was doing some training around those ends, you had kids who, lots of brown people were on the Teach First course. And a lot of us were going into schools where these kids, their parents are, BNP supporters and like they hate your guts, really, the parents do. And so that those kids are coming in with a certain narrative, right?
Fixed narrative,
And they've got those prejudicial inclinations. However, simply that interaction with you changed their whole mind. And I'm not saying that it's up to us, we bear that burden. But for kids, it's different. You're not dealing with adults here. For kids, you're giving them a window of insight into really an entire ethnic group through you.
Yeah.
So imagine the power, right? Imagine how that shifts the tides.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next thing I would move on to is asking them to understand the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And they watch a little video and basically...
Can I say, so someone with a fixed mindset will say, I'm either good at it or I'm not. I don't like to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. You've got to tell me I'm smart. If you succeed, I feel threatened. I guess that's envy, right? And competition.
Absolutely.
That's from a fixed mindset. And the growth mindset, somebody with a growth mindset, say things like, I can learn anything I want to. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. I want to challenge myself. When I fail, I learn. Tell me I try hard. So I don't want to know that I'm smart. I want to know that I try hard. I guess that's where the effort grades came in, eh?
Absolutely.
Subject mark C, effort A. I used to be like, what the hell am I going to do about effort grade? Now I get where it came from. If you succeed, I'm inspired. My effort and attitude determine everything.
Exactly. So this is what we want education and learning to bring about in young people, a growth mindset, so that in the future, if they're experiencing a challenge, they try one method, doesn't work, they understand that was a mistake, they try another one. And then if that method works, they keep implementing that same level of effort and always building their life upwards. Sometimes you think your life is going to go one direction and then you get inspired by so many other environmental factors that you actually think, you know what, that option wasn't for me. I read this quote where it said, if plan A doesn't work, there's always 25 other letters in the alphabet that you could try. I get them to copy the definition down so that it becomes embedded. And then this activity basically gets them to think about, have they understood what the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset is? So I get them to either stand up or sit down, etc., based on their responses. So it's a bit of kinesthetic learning there. These are really good. BBC have got some amazing videos on growth mindset and fixed mindset and what it would look like in the classroom. They're cartoons, but totally relatable for Key Stage 3 young people. When I would be delivering this session to Key Stage 4 students, I sort of bring in exams and GCSEs and then tell them about, my mock results and how just a shift of 6 months of doing after school revision totally changed Same for you, didn't it? Totally changed
I
our
was
results.
predicted an E or E minus or something ridiculous like that for English. And then I went away and I thought, I don't know, for some reason that summer I had the epiphany of, hang on, this is just a predicted grade. Well, nobody can tell me how much I can go away and learn on my own and improve. And why can't I improve? It's data, and my brain can process data. So why can't I process this? If there is a recipe, then I'm going to figure out what that recipe is. And then I asked Zainab, she was doing her A-level English at the time, to show me. I'd read through her essays. I mean, I didn't understand much because I wasn't studying that text, but I would look at structure of how she used to write her essays and the methods that she used and the analytic approach that they used at A-level. And I simply took that and applied it to GCSEs and passed with an A star, baby.
And then passed
and
it
that's
on.
purely change of mindset. But if I had the type of teacher who was like, you know what, you're crap at English, just give up. Or if I had like an adult voice who was just saying, you know what, you're just not apt at this, just accept it, this is just what you're going to get, you'll do better in other subjects. I'm not sure that my mindset would have changed. Like, I think I would have had a fixed mindset in English.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If that adult in that classroom has given up on the kid, then the kid will wind up giving up in that subject, maybe potentially even in more subjects, because they automatically begin to think, oh, literacy isn't for me then. I always like to do application, and I like to show young people a broad spectrum of people in the past who have made huge mistakes and made mistakes over and over again and have come from an ACEs background as well and still made amazing contributions to society and for the development of humankind as well. You've got Michael Jordan, who actually, when he was in high school, his PE teacher said that he's not that great, and he went and took that away and put in deliberate practice. That's the effort. Effort is deliberate practice into becoming better at that skill, and therefore it gave him result and obviously a whole career in basketball.
I bet the kids love that.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan one.
This is the thing that I like to then sort of leave them with to think about, right? In terms of what kind of subjects are they doing well in, all right? Because we always want to start with the positive, right? Okay. There's this leader that says it's called the sandwich effect. You layer it with positive, then the thing they need to improve on, and then they layer it with another positive. It's the sandwich effect. So in English, have they got a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? I mean, some students will just be cheeky and just be like, yeah, they're growth and everything, right? So then you ask them further, right? Where's the evidence for it? How are you showing that you have a growth mindset in them? What behaviors or what deliberate practice do they put in to that subject to show that they are constantly open to developing their expertise, knowledge and understanding in that subject? It gives them all the subjects that they do and then different words that they could think about. Do they arrive to the lesson on time, or do they loiter in the corridors? And what, if that's the case, why are they choosing to fix themselves with a disadvantage in learning in that subject, etc. And this is just an extension exercise. I get some of them to design their own logo. If they had to be creating a logo for growth mindset, how would they illustrate that, and what might be a slogan that goes with it?
I like that.
This is a logo that I've designed for growth mindset. It's a very visual aid because obviously I teach a lot of EAL students, so you've got time, effort will result in personal growth. And it's been remarkable, this simple formula of writing it down for other people, but how much it's impacted on me in terms of me addressing the areas that I want to improve on in terms of my own personal development. That's the thing, isn't it? The more you wind up helping others, you help yourself in that journey as well, and help yourself to overcome the things that you didn't even realize was something that you had become fixed in, to untangle those things and continue to believe in yourself. And then the 3-2-1 method is a good plenary, and it says basically
3 things I learned, 2 things I found interesting, 1 question I have.
That's my PowerPoint done.
Thank you so much, darling. That was so interesting. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
No,
No.
I am
See ya.
beat. Yeah, I am beat. But I do wish everyone a relaxing end of year. And it's been a tough year. It's hard not to become fixed in this pandemic situation that we're in, especially since so many things are out of our control. But it's very important for us to frame it in the things that we can still do rather than all the things that we can't do. I mean, right now I'm struggling with Amena not being here and us not spending this festive season together. So I'm trying to find different ways to still connect with her and still have that sort of company and strong sister relationship still.
Growth mindset, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So FaceTime is our go-to at the moment.
Yeah.
And group calls.
Yeah. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching today. Have a wonderful end of year, and I shall catch you in 2021. Feels weird saying that.
2021.